In this session, we will discuss about constitutional values and citizenship. To begin with, the constitution of any country is a document from which the citizens derive their rights and duties. Constitution is the grand norm of any country. The Constitution of India is a living document which has been sanguinely laid down by men of wisdom. For the last so many years, our parliamentary democracy, as envisaged by the Constitution, has functioned very vibrantly and has been lauded as the largest democracy in the world. The founders of the Constitution were keen that our history and heritage animate the pages of the Constitution of an independent India. Accordingly, the services of Acharya Nandalal Bose of Shanti Niketan were engaged. The original Constitution of India, as adopted on 26 January 1950, was a handcrafted work of art with illustrations by Nandalal Bose and calligraphic text by Prem Bihari Narayan Raizada. For embellishing the chapters, headings, and several margins of the Constitution, Acharya Bose took inspiration from the genius of the grand artistic tradition of India, including Ajanta and Bagh Miral's miniature traditions, as well as from folk art. These vignettes from various aspects of Indian history and culture, they form a rich pictorial depiction of our tradition and heritage. The values embedded in our constitution are known as the constitutional values. As already mentioned, the Indian constitution came into force on the 26th January 1950. Before the commencement of the constitution, India was governed by the Government of India Act 1935. A constituent assembly was set up in 1946 to draft the Indian constitution. The Constituent Assembly adopted the Constitution of India on November 26, 1949. The provisions of the Constitution were drafted after taking into consideration the working of several constitutions in the world. The study of different constitutions across the world and the working enriched the experience and understanding of the constitution framers. As a result, India today has a unique, elaborate, and a modern constitution. The rich cultural heritage, diversity of languages and religion, and the problems of partition in a country also immensely influenced the framers of the constitution on the constitutional values that needs to be adopted. Let us now briefly analyze those constitutional values. Sovereignty of the people. The Constitution grants powers to the government and sets rules for the government to follow while using such powers. Though the Constitution provides power to the government, it receives this authority to confer such powers from the people. People are the source of the Constitution, and the Constitution emanates from them. Therefore, the ultimate source of validity and legitimacy to the Constitution are the people. The preamble of the Constitution of India states, "We, the people of India, do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this Constitution." Therefore, it is evident that the people are sovereign and they hold the ultimate power. People rule themselves through elected representatives who are bound by the Constitution created by the people. Thus, in India, all the powers lie with the people. The government can only govern the citizens in accordance with the power given by the people through the Constitution. If the government abuses the power given by the people, they have a right to overthrow the government, but only by legal means. Separation of powers. It is an old saying that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The concentration of power in one organ of the government would result in dictatorship. Therefore, one of the fundamental constitutional values is separation of powers amongst the three organs of the government. The Indian Constitution divides the duties of government among its three branches. As stated earlier, the legislature is empowered to make law, the executive implements the law, and the judiciary interprets the law. In theory, each organ is independent and cannot interfere with another. However, in a welfare state, or such as India, a strict adherence to separation of powers is not possible and it is also not advisable. Even though the Constitution of India divided the powers among the legislature, executive, and judiciary, each of these organs are empowered to exercise some control over the others to ensure that the others function according to constitutional values. The next important constitutional value is democracy. Democracy means that people rule themselves by consensus. Democracy could be of two kinds: direct democracy. In a direct democracy, all decisions are made by a majority of the citizens. The people govern themselves through decisions that are reached by either referendum or popular vote. This method, however, is possible only in small countries or in areas where the population is less. In large countries or in countries with a large population, the exercise of direct democracy is tedious and time consuming. For example, if in India we had direct democracy and a decision had to be reached on whether the voting age should be reduced from 18 years to 16 years, ensuring that all the millions of people voted would be extremely difficult, time consuming, and expensive. However, in a smaller country like Bhutan, this exercise would be relatively faster and less expensive because also of its lesser population. Indirect democracy, whereas in an indirect democracy, people first elect representatives to form and run a government. These elected representatives then taking decisions relating to policy and governance of the country. Thus, the government would be run by the elected representatives. These representatives are elected by the people for a fixed period. Indirect democracies are generally of two types: a parliamentary democracy or a presidential democracy. In a parliamentary democracy, the nation would be ruled by the majority party in the parliament, whereas in a presidential democracy, people elect a person as president. The Indian constitution establishes a parliamentary form of government. The basic feature of Indian democracy is that the government is responsible to the legislature. The President of India is a nominal head. The real executive power is vested with the Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. Now, the next essential constitutional value is constitutionalism. Constitutionalism implies limited government in accordance with constitutional procedures and norms. The government should be based on and should be responsible to popular will and should serve the public interest. A truly constitutional regime requires rule of law, democracy, and government by elected representatives. The other feature of a constitutional regime is that public power should be limited, that its exercise should not be arbitrary, and that it should meet certain normative standards, including protection of human rights. Constitutionalism also requires separation of powers, independent courts, judicial constitutional values, review of legislative and executive action, and a higher degree of openness and accountability in government. The Constitution not only prevents the concentration of power, but also provides checks and balances for the powers of each organ. This enables each organ to check the abuse of power by other organs. Constitutionalism, constitutionalism means control over the power of the government to prevent any arbitrary action by the government. Under the Indian Constitution, the legislature can make laws. Such laws cannot violate fundamental rights. The judiciary is empowered to decide the constitutionality of the legislations passed by the legislature. The judiciary is entitled to declare a law passed by the legislature as void and unenforceable if it violates fundamental rights or goes against the constitutional scheme of distribution of powers. The task of the executive is to implement the laws passed by the legislature, but it is the legislature that controls the appointment and tenure of the executive. Similarly, executive action could be reviewed by the judiciary for violation of fundamental rights and principles of natural justice. Every law passed by the legislature needs the president's approval for implementation. Though the judiciary is involved in interpreting laws, matter of appointment, tenure, and salaries of judges are controlled by the executive and the legislature. In addition, if a judge of the High Court or the Supreme Court is guilty of misconduct, he can be removed by Parliament through a vote of impeachment. This shows that all three organs, while generally independent of each other, also exercise a degree of control over the other organs. The main feature of it is it insists upon limitations upon government. It imposes checks and balances on the organs of the government. Unfettered discretionary power is against the constitutionalism. It promotes rule of law. The antithesis of constitutionalism is despotism. Another important constitutional value of the Constitution is republic. Republic means that the head of the state is an elected representative of the people. The president is the head of the state in India. The president of India is not the hereditary monarch like the queen in Britain or the king in Thailand. The president is elected indirectly by the electoral college for a period of 5 years. The electoral college consists of members of the parliament and members of the legislative assemblies of the states and union territories. Now, another very important constitutional value is socialist. The word socialist, it was added to the preamble of the Indian Constitution by the 42nd Amendment to the Constitution in 1976. This was not originally there in the preamble. It was only added by the 42nd Amendment to the Constitution, which had taken place in 1976. This word was added to ensure that the goal of the Indian Constitution become clearer and more explicit. The word socialist indicates that the material resources of the country and the means of production is either owned or controlled by the government. It also indicates the government's intention to bring economic equality and prevention of concentration of wealth in few hands. Economic equality and equal distribution of wealth are the prime concerns of the Constitution. The another very important value is secular. The word secular again was added to the preamble of the Constitution by the 42nd Amendment in 1976. So, socialist and secular, these were the two new words which were added to the preamble by the 42nd Amendment in 1976. This was done in order to make it clear that the nature of Indian Constitution is secular. Even before the inclusion of this word, the preamble of the Constitution expressly mentions that the Constitution of India was adopted to secure to all its citizens liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. Further, Articles 25 to 28 of the Constitution guarantees freedom of religion as a fundamental right. Secularism does not mean anti-God or pro-God. It means that the state does not have a religion of its own. Thus, whether a person is devout, an atheist, or an agnostic, all should be treated alike by the state. It eliminates God from matters of the state and ensures that no one is discriminated against on the ground of religion. As religion is a matter of personal faith and belief, a secular state keeps away from religion and it is not concerned with religions. It maintains an equal distance from all religions. Thus, in matters of religion, the state is neutral. This principle applies to all organs of the state, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. The preamble to the Indian Constitution declares that the Constitution was adopted to secure to all its citizens justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Justice, social, economic, and political justice may be understood as harmonious reconcilement of individual conduct with the general welfare of the society. Social justice aims at abolition of status. Social justice aims at abolition of all kinds of inequalities, which may result from the inequalities of wealth, opportunity, status, race, religion, caste, title, and the like. Economic justice aims at distribution of material resources for the common good and to prevent concentration of wealth. It also includes equal pay for equal work and right against exploitation, etc. Political justice means absence of any unreasonable or arbitrary distinction among the people in political matters. It also includes single electorate and adult franchise. In India, every citizen is entitled to contest in elections and also participate in voting, irrespective of race, religion, sex, caste, and place of birth. Now let's talk about liberty. What does it mean by liberty? Liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. Liberty means absence of undue and arbitrary interference with individuals' freedom. Liberty of thought and expression was expressly guaranteed by the Indian Constitution under Article 19(1) subclause A. This article guarantees to all citizens freedom of speech and expression. Article 25 to 28 promote liberty of belief, faith, and worship. Under Article 25, every person has a freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess, practice, and propagate religion. Then we talk about equality. Equality of status and of opportunity. Equality means no person is above the law and that everyone, irrespective of rank or subject or status is same before the law. So Articles 14, 15, 17, and 18 of the Indian Constitution provides equality of status. Article 16 specifically deals with equal opportunity in public employment. The concept of equality under the Indian Constitution aims at abolition of all sorts of distinctions and discriminations. Now let's talk about fraternity. What does it mean by fraternity? Fraternity means the spirit of brotherhood. It is the feeling that all people are children of the same soil and the same motherland. This term was inserted by the draft committee, keeping in view the religious, linguistic, and racial diversity in India. Several provisions in the Constitution, such as single citizenship, right to move, reside and settle anywhere in India, and freedom of trade and commerce throughout the territory of India, create a feeling of brotherhood among the Indian citizens. The another constitutional value is federalism. The Indian Constitution, it provides for a federal setup with a strong union. Our federal constitution establishes a dual polity with the union government at the center and state government at the regional level. Part 11 of the Indian Constitution provides for division of powers between union and state governments. Article 245 to 255 deals with legislative relations between the union and state governments. In Schedule 7 of the Constitution of India, the subjects of legislation is divided under three lists, namely Union List, State List, and Concurrent List. The Union List contains 97 entries on which Union government can pass laws. The State List contains 66 subjects on which state government can make laws. The Concurrent List enumerates 47 subjects on which both Union and state can make laws. Similarly, Articles 256 to 263 embody administrative relations between union and state governments. Further, the Constitution incorporates an elaborate scheme of distribution of financial relations between union and state governments. Now we'll talk about the independent judiciary. Independence of the judiciary is one of the prerequisites for a successful functioning of a democracy. The Constitution of India envisages several safeguards to ensure the independence of the judiciary. The judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts, they are appointed by the President of India on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. However, the Chief Justice of India is to be consulted in making any such appointment. In the Supreme Court, Advocate on Record Association versus Union of India and in Ray Presidential Reference All India Reports 1999, Supreme Court 1, the Supreme Court held that the Chief Justice of India shall be the senior-most judge of the Supreme Court, and in matters of appointment of other judges to the Supreme Court and High Court, President is bound by the recommendations made by the Chief Justice of India, and this in consultation with other senior judges. These two cases took away the discretionary power of the executive in appointing and transfer of judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts. The tenure of the judges is secured under the Constitution. Judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts would retire only after reaching 65 years and 62 years, respectively. Judges cannot be removed before the expiry of the tenure except by an order of the President by way of impeachment under the Indian Constitution. According to Article 124, a judge of the High Court or Supreme Court can be impeached only for proved misbehavior or incapacity. The impeachment proceedings require support of majority of total members and not less than two-thirds of majority of those present and voting in each House of Parliament. The salaries and allowances of the judges could be determined by the legislature, but once they are determined, they cannot be altered to the disadvantage of the judges during their tenure of office. The salaries, advances, and expenditure of the court would be charged to the Consolidated Fund of India and Consolidated Fund of States, respectively, and they are not subjected to vote of the legislature. The Constitution of India prohibits the judges of Supreme Court from practicing before any court after their retirement. Further, the Constitution also debars the judges of the High Court from practicing before a court where he or she had been a judge. This ensures absence of bias or undue influence. Coming to the most important constitutional value of the Constitution, which is the fundamental rights. The fundamental rights, recognizing the certain basic rights and giving them a constitutional basis so that these rights may not be violated by the government, is one of the most important features of modern democratic constitutions. The Indian Constitution is one example of such a practice. Part 3 of the Indian Constitution secures certain basic rights known as fundamental rights. These rights, they aim at individual liberty and provide security against arbitrary action by the government. These rights, they represent the cherished values of the people of India. The main features of these are they contain basic freedoms, prohibitions against state, beyond the reach of majority, limitations on the power of the government, and the object is to establish a government of law and not of persons. These rights are justiciable rights. Originally, the Constitution of India recognized seven fundamental rights, but by the Constitutional 44th Amendment Act, right to property was removed from the list of fundamental rights, and at present, the Indian Constitution guarantees six fundamental rights, which are the right to equality, Article 14 to 18, right to freedom, Article 19 to 22, right against exploitation, Articles 23 to 20 and 24, right to freedom of religion, Articles 25 to 28, cultural and educational rights, Articles 29 to 30, right to constitutional remedies, Article 32 to 35. Now become, these are the fundamental rights. Now coming to the directive principles of state policy. Now, directive principles of state policy are also, which are normally in the part 4 of the Indian Constitution. The articles which contain the directive principles of state policy are from 36 to 51 of the Indian Constitution. These articles are the directive principles of state policy, and these principles establish India as a welfare state. These principles were included in the Constitution with a view to secure socio-economic democracy. They impose a positive obligation on the state to implement the directives contained in it. They contain legislature and the executive. They contain broad principles to govern and guide the legislature and the executive in the governance of the country. The main features are to set out the aims and objectives of the government, and these principles must be kept in mind while passing laws and framing policies. They impose positive obligations on the government to implement the directives. They constitute social and economic programs for a modern democratic state. They are non justiciable rights. Now, coming to citizenship. What is citizenship? Because this chapter talks about constitutional values and citizenship, we will be talking about citizenship also, or who is considered to be a citizen of this country, India. The part 2 of the Constitution talks about citizenship, specifically Article 5. Article 5 tells us who are the citizens of India. Article 5 reads as, at the commencement of this Constitution, every person who has his domicile in the territory of India and who was born in the territory of India, or either of whose parents was born in the territory of India, or who has been ordinarily resident in the territory of India for not less than 5 years immediately preceding such commencement shall be a citizen of India. So, apart from Articles 5, Articles 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, they also talk about citizenship, like who can be a citizen or who is a citizen of India. So, if you are, I will not delve into all those articles, and learners who are interested to learn further can read those articles from the Constitution of India itself. If you can take the Constitution of India, all those articles will be talking about who are the citizens of India. So, if you really want to know about who can be a citizen of India, you just have to go and read those articles. Article 5 specifically talks about who is a citizen of India, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, they talk about what are the, they actually deal with the provisions of citizenship in the Constitution. Now we talk about the meaning of citizenship. All of us are citizens of India and part of democracy, and we have the rights as per our Constitution. In all the countries, people travel and live as illegal migrants as they're not able to get citizenship of a particular country and they have no rights as a citizen. Citizenship means full and equal membership of political community, and states provide a collective political identity to the members, as well as certain rights like right to vote, right to speech and protest, holding demonstrations, use media, etc., right to justice, right to education, freedom of movement, socio-economic rights like minimum wages. So people can work anywhere in the country or outside the country, etc. These rights are privileges to the citizens and they enjoy these rights. Citizenship is not only a legal concept, it is also related to equality and rights. The British sociologist T.H. Marshall, in his book Citizenship and Social Class, defined citizenship as a status which is bestowed on those who are full members of a community. All who possess the status are equal with respect to the rights and duties with which the status is endowed. As per the above definition, an idea of citizenship is that of equality. This implies that first, quality of the given rights and duties improve and quantity of people upon whom they are bestowed grows. And three kinds of rights were highlighted, that is, civil, political, and social. So, civil rights protect the individual's life, liberty, and property. Political rights enable the individual to participate in the process of governance. Social rights give the individual access to education and employment. So, that means that it provides the opportunity for the citizen to lead a life of dignity, social, class, life of dignity. Social class was mentioned as the system of inequality, but citizenship ensures equality to all people, that is, equal rights and equal opportunities. So, in this lecture, I think you have got an idea of what the constitutional values are and what is citizenship. Now, just summarizing the entire lecture is we have studied in this entire lecture or in this session is we have talked about the meaning of constitution and how and why it is necessary in a modern democracy, the meaning of different types of democracy, the various values such as socialism, secularism, value for human rights, and human dignity that are emphasized in a constitution. We have also talked about the role and purpose of a constitution in ensuring that the rights of citizens are protected, the functions of the various organs of the state and how they are controlled through mechanisms present in the constitution. And finally, we've also talked about who can be a citizen of India and what are the rights of its citizenship. So I hope this lecture has sufficed and it has really been enriched. It has enriched you with the different values, constitutional values, and citizenship. With that, I come to an end of this lecture. Thank you so much.